Wisconsin Eye's 2014 election coverage is brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice for Wisconsin hospitals, supporting high-quality, high-value care in communities like yours.
Wisconsin Eye coverage of the 2014 elections continues with an interview with State Representative Joel Kleefisch of Oconomowoc. He's a Republican seeking re-election in the 38th Assembly District. Joel, welcome back to Wisconsin Eye.
Oh, it's good to be here, Steve.
Wisconsin Eye appreciates the support of the Wisconsin Hospital Association, which represents more than 139 hospitals and health systems, for making these candidate interviews possible. You're going for your 5th term. I like to ask incumbents who've been in the Assembly a while, what impact did you have? What issues did you work hardest on in the last session?
Well, the best single piece of legislation that came out of our office was the legislation in the area of adoption, readoption, dissolution. You know, this blows people's mind when I tell them about it, but as of last session, it was not against the law to advertise a child for readoption on the internet, on Craigslist, on Facebook. It was not against the law to give up your child with just a power of attorney signature. You tell people that, they say, come on, how's that even possible? When the statutes were written as for regulations and rules for readoption, they didn't take into account the future technologies that we have. We had cases in Wisconsin of children being readopted. You know, some adoptive parents were not happy with the situation, essentially signed over their child, advertised on the internet, signed over their child to someone who intended to do harm. We have one case out of Kiel, Wisconsin, where the young girl was readopted into a family that asked her to sleep with them in their bed in a state of undress the first night she was there. It's absolutely abhorrent and appalling, and I'm thrilled to say that we wrote legislation that doesn't allow for the advertising of kids on the internet and requires more than just a signature of a power of attorney to trade children. And the governor signed both of those bills into law. Okay. And that, a large portion, as the criminal justice chairman last session, a large portion of time was opening the can of worms that is the adoption system. And I'm sorry to say we're finding loopholes in areas we never imagined. Foreign adoptions, for example, kids who are coming to this country who are not on the radar screen. You know, we live 90 miles from one of the largest areas in the world for child trafficking, Chicago. And if a child's not known about, or doesn't have a social security number, has no record of them, they're ripe for abuse for those who wish to do them harm. In fact, we're in the middle today, right now, of an adoption dissolution legislative council committee that I have the honor of chairing. We're on our lunch break to come talk to you. We are trying to learn what are some of the areas that we can start tapping into making adoption and readoption safer, better for the kids and better for the families who wish to adopt, because we do love the concept of adoption.
You're not afraid of bills that push the envelope. Do you still
No.
think sex offenders should have distinctive license plates, Joe? I mean, you introduced that, what, 4 years ago?
What's
6?
interesting to me is a lot of the legislation I've proposed, including the adoption legislation, for example, which is we were the first state in the country to look at that specifically. Now we're being looked at it by several other states and Congress for a federal law. You're talking specifically about a bill I proposed that would have had the worst of the worst child predators, those who are required to be monitored by GPS tracking, which was a bill I was a lead author of, have a distinguishing license plate on their car. Do I still support it? Yes. When it came out, was it a kind of an idea outside of the box? Yes. Now several other states have that law in place.
They do.
But we do not in Wisconsin. Do I support it? Yes. I think for too long, child predators who we're talking about, we're not talking about the Romeo-Juliet syndromes. Child predators have been watching our kids, and we should have every tool in the cabinet to watch them back.
Okay. Let's talk about issues that will be up, assuming the re-election. School funding. The Speaker would like to take the 1,000 outstate cap off of the choice slots. Do you support that?
Yes.
Okay. Why?
Well, I just think that competition is good, and I think that although not all, and I'm not a person who's going to sit here and paint things with rose colors. There have been some cases of choice schools and charter schools that haven't been optimal. The history or time, I should say, will weed them out. And we've seen some close and some not operate effectively. But for the vast majority of choice schools, where a parent wants an opportunity to send a child using taxpayers' dollars to a school where they're going to have a chance to be more successful, it's worked. So I don't think there should be a cap. I think where it works, it should be allowed to be expanded. Where it doesn't work, society will say, well, it's not working and our public schools are doing the job. I'm the parent of 2 kids who go to public schools. A lot of people don't know that I'm a public school substitute teacher in Lake Country. I substitute teach for Spanish and music, and sometimes we sing La Bamba in both classes. So I have a great deal of pride in our public schools in the cases where a child is not getting the education they deserve. For them to look at a choice school or their parents, I think should be a perfectly legitimate option. I think it gives incentive to those of us who teach in the public schools to make those public schools better.
With your wife being the lieutenant governor,
She is.
I think I know where you are on this next issue. I'm referring, of course, to Governor Walker's call that Wisconsin withdraw from the Common Core standards, sir. Support?
Yes, I do support. To me, I don't think anybody does a better job with deciding curriculum than local school boards.
Okay.
And that's really the long and short of it for me. Common Core's got some pros, more cons, in my opinion. Let the local school board decide what's best for the students of that school.
Transportation funding. In this biennium, we borrowed $991 million. Projected shortfall, $600 million, $700 million the next biennium. How do we fill it?
Well, you know what? One of the frustrating things about projected shortfalls or projected increases or projected revenues, for that example, is we have a budget process to do that. I had the privilege of sitting on the finance committee, and we voted for Act 10 5 times, I think, 3 in committee and twice on the floor. That committee is commissioned to solve the budget, and as you know, statutorily or constitutionally, we're not allowed to run a debt or deficit. We have to balance a budget in the state of Wisconsin. So I have full confidence that the future legislature, under Governor Walker and under Republican leadership in both houses, will figure out how to do the transportation fund without going back to indexing of gasoline and with the resources we have.
Okay. What about our $75 per vehicle license plate registration fee? Would you consider voting for an increase of that?
No.
You would not?
Nope.
Okay. What about the idea that we should report to DOT vehicles miles traveled annually?
No.
No?
No.
Would you support?
I don't think the bottom line, we see other states, a lot of other states, have got extremely exorbitant fees for registering their vehicles or licensing their vehicles. If we're serious about getting people to work and getting people to their jobs, we can't punish them for driving their car.
Okay. As a former member of the Joint Finance, you know that 1 in 5 Wisconsin residents get their health care through our Medicaid. Mm-hmm. American Hospital Association, we have the 2nd lowest reimbursement rates. Is it time to increase those reimbursement rates?
Well, I think we certainly have to take a look at it. One of the things we did from the Doyle administration to the Walker administration is eliminated the waiting list. In doing so, we went down to 100% of poverty versus 200% of poverty. You know that also. We should look at reimbursement rates. We should look at them for nursing homes. We should look at them for Medicaid. We should look at them for dentistry. The reality of it is we have to allow, private sector doctors to operate with a fair assessment and give them some kind of encouragement to take these cases. And unless you have close to fair reimbursement rates, they're going to continue to rely on the private pays, and then the private pay gets punished because of it.
I'm asking legislators from the Milwaukee metro area this question. Should there be state aid for a new Milwaukee Bucks arena?
No.
Under no circumstances?
Under no circumstances.
Okay.
I'm not going to couch it, but I will say I think the Milwaukee Bucks are an extreme asset to the economy of Milwaukee and the state of Wisconsin, as are the Brewers, as are the Packers. I strongly support the Milwaukee Bucks. I think that after we saw the fight to pay for County Stadium, I was a reporter at the time covering that, the bottom line is priorities of government in difficult times when wallets are tight should not be advancing current professional sports. That's just my opinion. Where there's a will, there's a way. I have confidence that we'll find a way to keep the Milwaukee Bucks here. Should they have a new facility? Arguably. When I go to the Bradley Center, I still have a good time. You know, the university I went to was expanding the buildings when I went there, and I learned in a trailer. I still got a great education. If it's something that they want, I think they should pay for it.
As a former member of finance, you've heard the potential budget deficit numbers. I don't want to get in those weeds, but if you're reelected and if you face a 2015-2017 potential budget shortfall of more than $1 billion, what would you advise your leaders and members of finance in terms of solving it?
Well, I think that when we were on finance, we eliminated a $3.6 billion budget deficit. I don't think a $1 billion budget deficit is going to be tough to eliminate when we eliminated 3.6. It's going to call for some tough decisions. Governor Walker and the finance committee members and members of both houses have shown, if they haven't shown through Act 10 that they're okay making some tough decisions, they haven't shown anything. We have made tough decisions, not always liked, but we are going to have to take a look. And a large portion of that was done by asking for a portion of state employees to pay a portion of their own retirement and a portion of their own health care. Mm-hmm. I don't think we're going to go down that road. You know, I think the governor was very clear, and so were the leaders of the finance committee this last session and the session before, that we were not going to expand the contributions for state employees. So, but I can tell you that fighting a $1 billion deficit, what you didn't mention is that the revenue projections are
you can dial those up 1%, 2%.
Going to end up higher too. So hopefully by the time we have those questions to answer, we'll be on an even playing field. But I do have confidence that we'll be able to balance the budget without raising taxes.
The medical marijuana bill is coming back. We have the state of Washington, Colorado legalize recreational use of marijuana. Your positions?
Well, I'll tell you what. I had a father-in-law die of pancreatic cancer at age 52. He never met his grandkids. He was prescribed a product called Marinol, which is a synthetic form of tetrahydrocannabinol. It does the same thing as marijuana. It's already legal in the state of Wisconsin. I did support cannabidiol oil legalization, which is a byproduct of marijuana without the THC in it. That is proven in some cases to help kids with epileptic seizures and other neural disorders. And I think that was a specified case where we can see medicinal use for it. I have no problem with that. I don't think we need to legalize marijuana for medicinal purposes as long as we have synthetic forms of it that are perfectly legal already. I'm not a fan of legalizing marijuana for recreational use. We have enough of a can of worms regulating people's use of alcohol and performing functions while under the influence of alcohol driving. I don't see a reason to add to that. Then you have the argument that legalizing marijuana is another gateway drug, and the problem we're seeing right now with ecstasy, methamphetamines, whether it be the MDMA form or the straight meth, and heroin, I don't see that we need another reason to add a narcotic to that.
You mentioned alcohol. You've been around this debate 4 terms. Mm-hmm. First offense, OWI, should it be a crime?
Do you know that it used to be a crime in the state of Wisconsin? First offense used to be a criminal offense.
Until when?
It was the mid-'80s, and the reason that they turned it into civil forfeiture was to move it out of the circuit courts so that the DAs could prosecute cases at the time they considered more serious, child molestations, burglaries, armed robberies, murders. And when they did that, they made the laws for the offense have extremely stiff penalties compared to most other states at the time. So although it is not a criminal act, there are stronger potentially more detrimental effects of being convicted: automatic loss of license, alcohol assessment. You're going to pay about $10,000 by the time you're done getting a DUI. there are other states like Illinois, for example, which makes it criminal, but after a certain period of time, it's gone from your record completely.
Yes.
So that's like a start over. That's a much less, less grave consequence than you have for getting a drunk driving in Wisconsin. If you get one in Illinois and you go a year without one, it's completely gone from your record, criminal or otherwise. So I think that our consequences are working because we see the vast majority of those who get a DUI never get another one. Mm-hmm. Of course, and I think that's why I agree with treating repeat offenses much more harshly.
Okay. Finally, do you want to highlight any differences between you and your opponent on November 4, Joel?
I would say that I have a proven record. If you take a look at my legislative record, you'll see we've had several laws, several bills signed into law that have to do with the protection of children and families, from GPS tracking to child predators. I have been a strong supporter of the constitutional right to hunt and fish in the state of Wisconsin. I am strongly involved in laws that govern the way our children are treated throughout the state of Wisconsin. And I've had the privilege of being on the Finance Committee. So I have an understanding, an in-depth understanding of how we put budgets together and how we did that without raising taxes while reducing the state budget debt. I don't have anything negative to say about my opponent. Don't really know him that well. I learned how to pronounce his name a couple weeks ago when I met him. But I know he fully supports implementation of Common Core, and he's much more open to tax increases than I am.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Sure.
Representative Joel Kleefisch of Economowoc is a Republican seeking re-election in Assembly District 38. Joel, thanks for talking to Wisconsin.
My pleasure, Steve.
Thank you.
All right.